Spooky salutations! This is Scenes, Screams, and Spooky Themes, a horror movie recap and review podcast.
Each episode, we break down a horror movie piece by piece and also give you our unhinged opinion on it.
You've heard of not judging a book by its cover. Get ready to not judge a corpse by its soulless appearance. This week, we're covering the Autopsy of Jane Doe.
I'm Eva. Ready?
I'm Jasmine. Set.
And I'm Cody. Action!
It's time for another episode of SSST Podcast.
A spooky episode.
Yeah, this was a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much enjoyed this one.
So this movie is spookier than some of the other ones that we've done, but it is also, if you ask me, a fun time. So I thought a question to ask you. Name a movie that isn't supposed to be scary, but scarred you for life.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I really have to think about it.
To give you time to think, I will share mine. When Spirited Away came out, my dad rented it, and I forget exactly how old I was, but I was a bit young, and my dad thought that, animated movies are, just for kids. And so we had the forethought to put my younger sister upstairs watching Tarzan, and so we're watching Spirited Away, and at the point that the no-face is just eating everyone, I freaked out. And I had to go upstairs and watch Tarzan.
That is really scary. And when they get turned into pigs,
that was already. I was freaked out, but I wanted to see the movie, so I stuck it out through that. But I didn't see the end to Spirited Away. I didn't know how it ended until I was in high school.
Oh.
I went a very long time.
Yeah, I could definitely see that one.
That is a good one.
I think the closest that I can think of is there's one scene in Fellowship of the Ring. It's a Scary Bilbo.
Oh my god.
So I was very, very young when that movie first came out. I mean, I don't want to think about what year it actually released, but I went to go see it in theaters. I had no idea that was going to happen. I had never read the books or anything like that. So I'm just sitting there vibing, having a good fancy time, and all of a sudden, this demon pops out of this kind old man, and I break down in tears in the middle of the theater. I got jump scared too hard.
No.
That is jump scare at its finest, so I don't blame you.
In hindsight, it's not scary, but at the time it was really scary. Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. That sat with me for a really long time, and then I rewatched it and was like, this isn't scary. But Scooby-Doo, the live-action Scooby-Doos, when they're on that island.
No, those definitely got
were...
me too.
I didn't like those.
I was a big Scooby-Doo fan, which was crazy because I didn't like scary things, but I loved Scooby-Doo, which, I guess isn't scary, but it has monsters in it. So my parents were like, of course she can watch the Scooby-Doo live action movie. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Surprise.
I didn't like those at all. But I love those movies.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen them a bunch. It's been a while, but I've seen them a bunch. And I love them, even though, that one scarred me for life, too.
Yeah.
It's actually funny you mentioned that. I was actually just shown the first movie not too long ago, just a few weeks ago. I had never seen it before.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a wild time.
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster.
And... in the way that a lot of kids' movies were and still are, there's a lot of raunchy jokes in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot more than I was expecting. I was expecting a few just when it was made and kind of how it was made. There was some bits in there. I'm like, oh, good heavens.
Ooh, she questionable. Well, thank you for indulging me with that. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And the answers were fun. But shall we get into the Autopsy of Jane Doe?
Let's get slicing.
We have first thoughts. I saw this movie, I don't remember when, a couple of years back though. And at first I thought it was just your very standard horror movie, slight hauntings, but we got corpses around. It's not a spoiler because it is called The Autopsy. But anyways, it went in a really unique direction. And so at the end there, I loved it. It's not too long. It's paced really well. We don't get a ton of Like they kind of try to build some stuff up with the characters that falls flat, but it doesn't even matter because the spooks are good and that twist at the end is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't remember when I watched this. Like you said, it's been a while. I was definitely really scared the first time I saw it, but this time I kept getting ads, so it kept taking me out. It would be like this really tense moment, and then suddenly Domino's stuffed crust pizza.
I
Okay.
feel like they time those at like the worst possible times.
Yeah.
Like they know that it's in like some pivotal scene.
I really enjoyed it though.
Yeah. I actually just saw this movie for the very first time maybe a month and a half ago or so. I had like a dad moment of trying to like do stuff and then slowly start actually watching the movie. My partner was watching it at the time and I kind of peeked over, and Eva, just like you said, I thought it was like, oh, it's coroner's office but haunted. Pretty standard. Yeah, so I was just doing some stuff in the kitchen. I kept peeking over and I became more and more interested. And then once it really started getting into the story, I'm like, oh no, this is different. This is cool. And so I immediately stopped what I was doing and went and sat down, and I was thrilled the entire time. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, this one's a really good time. And I also had a really good time writing this script. So I hope that if you have not seen the movie, this paints a pretty good picture for you. And so we can jump in. The Autopsy of Jane Doe was released December 21st, 2016, directed by, I'm going to do my best here, Andre Orvidal.
Pretty good.
I don't know enough to dispute you, so I think that's good.
Orvidal. We open on our title card, which is shown in a patch of dirt, a strong wind blowing bits of the dirt away. We read The Autopsy of Jane Doe. We see a blurry shot of what looks like branches from a tree. The shot slowly turns, revealing it had been upside down, and as it comes into focus, we see a house. We also get the information that this takes place in Grantham, Virginia. We see just your typical 2-story family house. There's patio furniture outside with an unattended teacup and a half-smoked cigarette. Inside, we see a crime scene tech taking pictures. Something has happened here. There is blood all over the ground. Evidence markers. A dead older woman lays on the ground. A landline phone hangs next to her like she had been trying to make a call. There is also a dead older man. A gun on the ground next to him. A sheriff leans down looking at him before going upstairs. There is another dead man. Another gun. There are bullet holes in the door, showing how he died. The sheriff walks into the bedroom and looks out the window. People are gathering outside, and a news van is driving up. Over a radio, somebody calls Sheriff Burke downstairs. He descends into the basement. There's more blood splattered all across the walls. More than it seems like should be possible. A ton of blood.
Too much.
And there's no bodies down there.
Where did it come from?
Someone was just like spurting out an artery, I guess, while they went up the stairs. He walks up to 2 other investigators. The ground is dirt. There's no cement or anything. There's a hole dug into it. There's a dead woman inside the hole, still half buried. She's young. Her skin is incredibly pale. She looks oddly peaceful. The crime scene tech reveals that she has no relation to the murder victims. Another officer walks up, asking who she is. Burke responds that for now she's a Jane Doe. He asks if the officer has anything, and she says that nothing was stolen and there's no sign of forced entry. To her, it looks more like they were trying to break out. Burke looks puzzled. He turns back to the girl in the hole. We see some establishing shots of what looks like a morgue. There's a spiral staircase leading down from a storm cellar door. Something that I am not familiar with. I saw that and I was like, this is a storm cellar door, right?
You don't see those too often.
Yeah.
There's long hallways, a well-used office. Pictures on the wall reveal that this is a family business, started in 1919. A man and woman stand posed with their young son. A matching photo shows that boy grown up with his own wife and son. The place is older, but not run down necessarily. We get our first shot of a convex mirror that looks down the main hallway, which is, the kind that they put in corners to help you see what's going on the other side so you don't run into anybody. We'll be seeing this mirror again. That's why I bring it up.
The plot mirror.
Very much so. There's an incinerator. This is a crematorium. We start panning in on the autopsy room door. Rock music is playing inside. We see an autopsy being performed on a man whose whole body is charred and burnt. It's pretty grisly looking, actually. Definitely points for the effects here.
It was gross.
Disturbed me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It appears to be the father-son duo performing the autopsy. They're removing organs, taking notes on a whiteboard, taking pictures and putting them up on a cork board, collecting samples of tissues and fluids. They examine everything from his charred flesh to his brain. The whole process is filmed by a camcorder on a tripod. These are our main characters. Austin, played by Emil Hirsch, and Tommy, his father, played by Brian Cox. His name is Tommy, but will I be calling him Dad this entire script? Why, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I think I am. As they finish the autopsy and start cleaning up, Tommy asks Austin what the cause of death is. Austin doesn't want to be quizzed, but his dad insists. He responds smoke inhalation and cites the damage to the nasal passages, throat, and lungs. His father questions him and says that you have to look before you leap. The body was discovered in the kitchen. Why wasn't he trying to get away from the fire? The lungs are damaged, but not enough to kill him. He shows Austin a fracture inside his skull. The actual cause of death was a subdural hematoma, which is when there is a blood buildup inside of your skull, which then puts pressure on the brain, and then the brain can't handle the pressure, and then you die. And yes, I 100% learned that from Grey's Anatomy.
Who says TV isn't helpful?
Real doctors can tear Grey's Anatomy apart all they want. It is their God-given right. But I have learned a thing or two, having watched all 20 seasons. Dad says that everybody has a secret. Some just hide them better than others. Austin replies that some people are better at finding them. Dad encourages him, telling him he did good and he'll get there. Austin muses that the man hasn't even been claimed yet. He died because there was no one there to help him. Dad doesn't like that thinking. He says that the man died from hitting his head, nothing more. Austin's phone buzzes. His dad asks him if he has plans tonight. He says that his girlfriend wants to catch a movie. He playfully asks his dad when the last time he went to see a movie was. Dad's eyes go distant, and he says she has Alzheimer's and he's building her a house. Austin asks if he means The Notebook. Dad confirms and says that Austin's mother made him see it with her for her birthday, but he fell asleep 5 minutes in. Controversial take. That's the right choice.
Honestly, I can't remember a thing about The Notebook. I can't.
It was not a good relationship portrayed in that movie. So, I don't know. I ain't gonna blame anybody when they thought that was real romance when they were a kid. But if you watch that as an adult and you're like, this is the relationship I want, I'm gonna be like, you need therapy, girl. Dad looks wistful and asks Austin if he can finish cleaning up. Austin says yes, and Dad leaves the room. Austin comments hematoma to himself, seemingly still disappointed that he got it wrong. And then he's taking off his glove and he snaps them across the room. And I was like, yeah, that's proper disposal.
That'll show him.
You're just gonna have to clean that up later with your bare hands.
Nasty.
Out in the hallway, we watch Dad travel through the hallway through the convex mirror. He goes up the stairs, opens the cellar door, and has a quiet smoke by himself in the yard. Cut to Austin putting the body back in a morgue locker, or as we like to call them here on SSST Podcast, the corpse cabinets.
The corpse cabinets, that's right.
He's writing on a card when he hears a noise behind him. It's coming from the vents. He finishes writing and slides the card into the locker door. A cat emerges from the vent carrying a dead rat. Austin calls to his dad that Stanley caught another one and then throws the rat in the biomedical waste bin. We all know that I gathered this information. Stanley the cat is a gray tabby, properly credited in the credits. He is played by Sydney. Sydney.
Cute. Also, I like to think that they just leave random events open for Sydney.
Sydney Stanley, same guy.
They both start with an S and end with a Y.
Yeah, I was like, why are all these vents open? I don't want my cat wandering around in the vents. They're really enabling this guy.
Lily's gotten into a vent in our old house and she came out and she was disgusting.
Chip really likes finding hidey holes and he comes out covered in like dust and cobwebs. And I'm like, where were you?
I've lost a cat for like 10 hours because I left one of my dresser drawers open and never found her the whole time until eventually like she forced it open with her head and came out. So like, yeah, I can't imagine like, oh, where's Stanley? I don't know. I haven't seen him in like 3 days. He's probably in the vents, just hanging
Right?
out. Yeah.
That's insane.
He's venting among us.
Sus.
Well-
I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. All right. As Austin washes his hands, he hears more thuds. He calls for his dad again, but no response. He walks down the hallway, listening for the sound, but only hears the buzz of electricity. The convex mirror tracks his progress. He turns off the light in his father's empty office with suddenly jump scare. He is pushed from behind by a woman who yells to startle him. He jumps and she laughs. It's his girlfriend, Emma. He asks how she got down here, and she replies that the key was in the elevator. He had wanted to meet outside, but she had wanted to see his workplace, and she's impressed? She doesn't have much to say about it.
Yeah, I think
I don't
she's
know.
just curious.
It's older and larger than she thought. He explains that 3 generations of the Tilden family had expanded this place. He doesn't get why she wants to see inside, but she says it's fair since he got to see her at work. But he replies that she works in a bookshop. Yeah, it's pretty different. Emma wanders over to the morgue lockers, the corpse cabinets. She asks if they're all people. Austin replies only 3 tonight. She asks to see a body. He's surprised and refuses. There are some things you can't unsee. She insists that she can handle it. He says that his dad is too strict. On cue, his dad says from behind them, "Try me." He's in the room sipping coffee from a mug. He asks Emma which body she wants to see. Do you think you could handle seeing a real corpse?
I have.
And you turned out okay.
I think so.
Yeah, without sharing too much, yeah, I've seen a dead body.
Yeah.
It wasn't pleasant considering who it was, but yeah, I'm okay.
It was a stranger to me, so
Yeah.
And I was young. I was a child, so I
I've
don't
not
really.
seen a human corpse. Given the opportunity, like I think I could handle it, but also I wouldn't just ask.
Yeah, no.
It's kind of weird, Emma. Austin is shocked, but his dad confirms that if she's serious, she says hell yeah, she can pick one. She gestures to a locker. Austin opens the locker on the right. It's labeled Irene Daniels, malignant mesothelioma, which is lung cancer. I googled that one. Sorry, Grey's Anatomy.
Cut to the ads that used to come on TV.
Seriously.
I believe mesothelioma is specifically mostly gotten from asbestos exposure, which is why you saw that, however many years ago, because time to share random facts and information. So asbestos exposure has a latency period of about 5 to 30 years before you actually show symptoms. So back when asbestos was nice and popular all over the place in the 50s and 60s, it took about that amount of time for 80s and 90s to start showing ads, because that's when people were starting to get mesothelioma all the
Oh.
time.
I didn't think it was such a long period.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of nuts.
Poor Irene probably just had an asbestos house.
Mm-hmm.
Popcorn ceiling.
Austin pulls out the drawer, and there's an older woman on it, her body covered in a sheet. Her eyelids and mouth are sewn shut. Her skin is graying. Emma looks a little disturbed, but says that's not the one she picked. Austin says a body is a body, but she wants to see it. He reluctantly puts Irene back and goes to the next locker. It's labeled Louis Tannis, strychnine. They actually spelled strychnine wrong on the card. It said strychnine.
Oh, I
That's
didn't
not
notice
what it was
that.
supposed to be.
Interesting.
Little oopsie. This body is different in that his head is also covered by a sheet. A small bell is tied around his purpling ankle, and it rings faintly as the slide is jostled. Emma looks uncomfortable now. The face covering is bloody and sinks into the head. Austin and Dad watch Emma, seeming amused. She asks about the bell. Dad explains that in the old days, it was hard to tell the dead from comatose patients. Coroners used the bells so that if they heard it jingle, they knew someone was still alive. She asks why he has it. He sips his coffee and says he's a bit of a traditionalist, but there's only one bell on the 3
I was
bodies.
thinking about that. That's weird.
And also, I'm sorry, but with the covering dipping into the face, I don't think this guy's in a coma.
No, pretty sure he's not. Pretty sure he's gone. You don't need that bell.
I think Irene deserves the bell more than
Yeah.
she doesn't have one.
I mean, you never know.
Justice for Irene.
She then asks why the face is covered. Dad tells her there wasn't much of a face left. He had been shot point blank. She asks who shot him. He says that the angles suggest self-inflicted, but they discovered the strychnine in his system. He was actually likely dead before he was even shot. She asks why someone would do that. Dad chuckles and says she sounds like Austin. The why is left to the police and shrinks. They only find the cause of death here. No more, no less. Emma pauses, then starts reaching for the face covering. Austin grabs her wrist to stop her, saying she doesn't want to see that. Dad says it's all right, and Austin lets go of her hand. As she touches the covering, the bell rings. She jumps back in fear, but it was only Dad. They all chuckle. Austin shuts the body back in the locker. Honestly, I do think that's a great prank.
Oh, it was
was
a
good.
fantastic gag.
Yeah.
It was really good.
I think I would have peed.
I would not have been going for the face covering in the first place, but yeah,
No.
I would have pissed my pants immediately.
Yeah.
I love this kind of like dual later as well, because like it does that horror movie thing where you think, oh, something's gonna happen, and like nothing actually happens, but it does it to the character and you.
Yeah. And then it was kind of the same thing too when she scares Austin when she shows up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they can give you little scares before we amp things up. Austin teases Emma as they walk through the hallway since she got scared too. She asks how you get used to that. He says you do and you don't. As they reach the elevator, it opens. Sheriff Burke is inside with a body bag on a gurney. He asks Austin where his father is. Austin asks what happened. Dad calls to Burke from down the hallway, and he starts to move the body back. Austin offers to stay and help, but Dad waves him off, saying, "Go have fun." Emma pulls Austin into the elevator. She watches him as they ascend. He's clearly thinking. As they exit the elevator, Austin wonders what Burke is doing here so late. It must be important. Emma can see where this is going. She calls him out for ditching her again and asks what his dad will do when he leaves. Austin pauses. She realizes that he hasn't told his dad he's leaving. He insists that he's going to. He doesn't want to be a morgue worker, but his dad needs him right now. She says he'll be fine. It's been 2 years. Austin hangs his head and asks her to come back in a few hours, at 11. She's pretty upset, but he keeps teasing and promises to buy her drinks. She reluctantly smiles and kisses him, saying, maybe, and leaves with a chuckle. He calls after her, "You're hot!" and earns another laugh. We see her car drive away. Take a little more than "you're hot" to get me back on your side, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
No. Yeah.
Cut to the body bag being unzipped. Burke is telling Dad she was found in the Douglases' basement and they haven't been able to identify her. Dad asks if he knows how she ended up there. From across the room, Stanley growls. Dad scolds him and he runs off. Dad mutters that the cat has been getting meaner. Burke tells Dad that the other man, Alvarez, had been working on the house. He guesses that Alvarez killed Jane Doe, tried to bury her in the basement, but didn't expect the couple to be home and armed. Burke will bring in the others tomorrow, but Jane Doe's autopsy is priority. Austin walks into the room, saying that it would have been nice to have a look at the crime scene. Burke and Dad shoot him a look. Burke says he just needs answers by morning for the press. He has 4 dead bodies and no idea how they connect. His believable theories don't account for her. He needs the autopsy done tonight. Dad agrees to do it. Burke leaves the room and Dad turns to Austin, saying he didn't need to come back. Austin responds, "I know," and they smile at each other. Rock music plays in the background as the men unzip Jane Doe's body bag and get ready to begin. They get out new instruments, remove all the notes from their last autopsy. Dad is speaking into the camcorder, giving their details, their qualifications, and an explanation of their process. They'll begin with an external evaluation, followed by an internal evaluation, including heart, lungs, digestive tract, and finally, the brain. The radio is giving the forecast. The next few days are going to be beautiful. Love to hear it. Jane Doe is naked on the table. And because I like to give boob warnings, we are going to see her breasts throughout the movie. It's not sexual. People just don't wear clothes when they're having an autopsy done. Her face is very serene, almost otherworldly. Austin is taking photos. He says the subject is in her mid to late 20s. Dad corrects him, saying she appears to be. We gotta get this right, you guys, for science.
Yeah. It's important.
He says it again for documentation. They note that there's no bruising, marks, or scarring on her pale skin. She has long, dark brown hair. Austin lifts her eyelid, and her eyes are clouded over gray. He looks at Dad questioningly. Dad remarks the eyes should only be that color if the body has been deceased for several days. With her eyes now open, Jane Doe's face looks very young and innocent. Her expression, one like she's just observing what's happening around her. I describe her face several times, and obviously it's my interpretation, but her face is an important element in the movie if you haven't seen it. So
We get a lot of close-ups of it.
it's like they constantly want to remind us that she is present in a way. Again, I'm giving my personal interpretation. If you watch the movie and feel differently, then that's valid.
No, I think that's right. Like, it definitely feels like she's there.
Yeah. They check her limbs. No rigor mortis. They're unsure of when she died. Austin notes that she has a very small waist. It's not proportional, even on her thin frame. Dad has him mark this on the whiteboard. As he does, Dad seems to notice something and examines her wrists, then her ankles. They're shattered, loose bone moving around under the skin. There should be outward signs for this much damage. Dad collects a sample from under her fingernails. It's not dirt, it's peat, which isn't found around here, only up north. It's on her feet and in her hair as well. Her nasal passages and ear canals are clear. Austin opens her mouth, and her tongue has been severed. Striations indicate that it was cut out, but crudely. Dad recalls a human trafficking case he saw before. Those two girls also had their hands and feet bound and their tongues cut out. Austin wonders if this is also a prostitution ring. It's a possibility. As Austin leans in to take a photo of her open mouth, he notices one of Jane Doe's nostrils begin to flare and twitch. A drop of blood slowly drips out of it. As he watches, a fly crawls out. It immediately flies out and into a bug zapper. Now, Jasmine, you are prone to nosebleeds. You ever get a fly in there?
No. Thank God I haven't. I think I would just die.
You'd be like, oh, this is the end. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Just thought I'd tease you a little bit.
I hated it.
Yeah, I don't like that thought at all.
This is really our first indication that something's weird here because he just looked in her nose and there was nothing there.
Yeah, it was fine just a second ago.
Where'd the fly come from? Dad comes back over and notes a missing molar. Then he fishes out a long thread from her throat. Austin examines it under a microscope, but can only say it's fabric. He bags it for testing. We hear thunder rumble up above. Dad closes her mouth. As he examines her vagina, he notes no seminal fluid. He has Austin hand him a swab. Austin does not seem to want to watch this part. He looks super uncomfortable. He looks away and just kind of holds up the tube for Dad. When the swab is removed, it has blood on it. Dad looks at it questioningly. He continues his exam, and we get Austin's POV of looking at her face, first from the side and then straight on, so that she's looking directly at us as Dad reports she's torn up inside. There are cuts that were made deliberately. Dad steps away, looking disturbed, as Austin goes over the current evidence. Severed tongue, shattered joints, vaginal trauma. The prostitution ring theory holds up so far. Dad simply states that they still have a ways to go. He removes his gloves and leaves the room. Austin glances at the clock. He only has just over an hour before Emma is supposed to come back. He wrings his hands nervously. Honestly, me too, Austin. I did not enjoy watching that part.
There's a lot of very visceral and kind of raw medical gore, I would say, in this movie. Like, I have kind of a phobia of blood, so when I was watching it, there was a few points where I go,
Yeah,
I bet this was rough then. For me, yeah, it's the vagina stuff.
yeah, it's uncomfortable.
never a good time.
Luckily, we're not really going to go that direction again. So if that freaked you out, listener, we're done with that aspect. It'll be mentioned, but no more details. Cut to Dad stating for documentation that they are moving on to internal examination. They prop Jane Doe's head up on a block. Jane Doe stares on. The look on her face has shifted to almost fearful. Above them, thunder continues to rumble, and the lights flicker for a moment. The radio picks up static and chatter. The men stare at it. It suddenly clearly picks up an old-timey sounding song that starts with, "Let the sun shine in." You're welcome.
Beautiful.
I'm very good at singing. And then the song is about mommy warning her as a little girl about the devil.
Ominous.
Kind of weird.
I wonder what that's about.
Austin changes the radio back to rock. Yeah, I'd definitely take rock over that. Dad begins his long Y-shaped cut down her torso. Her white skin barely shows the cuts until he finishes, when suddenly blood pours from it, down her body and to a drain. Austin is confused. That isn't supposed to happen. Dad says that he's seen it, but on a fresh corpse. Only an hour dead. It's from a buildup of pressure. Austin collects some of the blood in a large vial and puts it in the fridge. They notice an odd, dark-colored spot along the inside of her skin, between where the outer dermis meets the inner dermis. I didn't super know how to describe this, and I don't super know if this is how skin actually works, but they seem to be showing it in, like, two layers that are squished together like an Oreo.
A skin Oreo?
A skin Oreo. You got skin, some flesh in the middle, and then more skin.
I hate that.
I mean, as horrible as that phrase is, that's actually kind of how it's structured. Like you have your outer layer of skin, and then you have like some, fat deposits underneath that, and then you have the subdermis, and then underneath that is muscles and nerve endings and all that stuff. I really don't like the term skin Oreo. That I hate.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. I'm so glad that I have that in my repertoire now.
Oh,
So awful.
it really is.
Oh,
Somehow it doesn't bother me at all. I'd eat an Oreo right now. Ice cream sandwich. Okay.
My partner loves to eat tortillas with peanut butter in them, and I'm gonna be horrified next time she does. Oh God.
No.
I guess that I feel almost proud of how creative that was because I said not a word about tortillas, and yet you've made that connection. I've movie that scarred you for life. Skin
I'll take
Oreos.
the list.
Skin Oreo.
Okay. Austin guesses melanoma, but that shouldn't be on the inside. Dad scrapes some up for testing. There are more odd black marks, barely visible. Austin takes the sample to the fridge, but notices blood dripping out of the bottom. He opens it and sees that the vial of Jane Doe's blood has somehow leaked and gotten all over almost everything in the fridge. Dad asks him what he did as he sees Austin start moving things around to clean up. He tells Austin he needs him to focus, and Austin sounds annoyed as he replies, "I got it." As he cleans, Dad continues the exam. They were right about her waist. It's too small, which could be explained by a corset. Austin notes that corsets went out of style hundreds of years ago. Dad uses rib cutters to take out her sternum. We watch her head jostle from the force. Her lungs are severely blackened, too black for it to be from being a smoker. This amount of damage should be accompanied by third-degree burns. Dad compares it to finding a bullet in the brain with no gunshot wound. They're puzzled. Her heart is covered in marks as well, as if it was cut. Austin points out similar markings on her other organs. Dad says it must be scar tissue. But from what? Dad asks him what she would look like if the internal trauma was also reflected externally. He responds that she'd be mangled, disfigured beyond recognition. They're no closer to understanding how she could look so normal on the outside. A large clap of thunder is followed by the lights flickering again. They look around. Dad points out that there are many ways to kill someone. You'd only do this much to a person to make them suffer. Suddenly, they hear a loud bang from the hallway. They look at each other. Austin offers to go get it. He walks down the hallway, peeking into doors, not seeing anything. Dad takes a moment to re-examine the crime scene photos. He notes that she's so clean. In the convex mirror, Austin sees a figure standing around the corner. He rounds it, but there's no one there. Told you that mirror'd be important.
Surprise. I'm afraid of this happening to me. I won't lie. Every time I see one of those mirrors, I'm like, there's going to be a person standing there. I know it. I can feel it.
I mean, that's why the mirror is there, though, to warn you. Because what if they were there and you didn't know it?
Yeah, but I don't mean like a spooky person, like a ghost.
But now you know you're haunted, so you can
Am
get
I better
out.
off not knowing?
I don't know. I guess it depends on if you believe you can survive the situation or not.
I don't think I can survive.
I'd like to think I'd try before I gave up. Like, at this phase in the movie, I would still be trying. Later on, I'd give up. We'll get
Yeah.
there.
I'd give up pretty fast. I'd be like, all right, you know what? You win.
Time to die. You're like one of those fainting goats. You see one scary thing and you just give up.
Yep.
Nope, take me here.
Exactly.
And yet you love horror.
I do. Yeah. Yep. Here we are. It's a conundrum.
Dad looks down at Jane Doe again, asking her what happened to her. He again notices the marks on the inside of her skin. He starts to cut with a scalpel when his hand slips. His wrist gets cut on one of her ribs. Now is the time to stop.
Yeah.
You get cut while you're exposed to somebody else's fluids, straight to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I screamed at my TV the second I saw that. That horrified me to no end.
Yeah, you'd think he would know to he watched it, but you'd think he would know to go to the hospital after that, considering this is what he does all the time.
Seriously, I do not care. Go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, like washing it off in the sink isn't enough. Like you stabbed
No.
yourself with the piece of and there's marrow in there, so that's like a whole other level of biofluid.
Yep.
Yeah, so probably the scariest part of the movie. He doesn't even know anything's wrong, but he chooses not to go to the hospital. He just like washes it out in the sink and bandages it. I'm like, y'all best be cleaning that in the sink with soap for 10 minutes whilst getting Austin being like, go get the car. We're going to the hospital as soon as I'm done here.
Yep.
We gotta go.
Austin is still hearing noises. He enters a room and turns on a light. Both men then hear the noises coming from the air vent. There's light banging. Austin climbs on a stool and opens the vent near him and peers inside. He doesn't see anything, so he turns to listen. Still nothing. When he looks back again, something runs across his line of sight, scaring him. He falls backwards off his stool, knocking his lamp to the ground as well. He gets up slowly, his vision blurry, and sees a figure in the doorway. But it's just Dad, who turns on the light and asks him if he's okay. He tells Dad that there's something in the vent, and he gets back up on his stool, with a flashlight this time. He spots Stanley laying inside. Worried, he pulls the cat out. Stanley's stomach is ripped up. He's bloody and whimpering. Austin holds him gently and looks up at Dad. Where Austin looks hurt, Dad looks devastated. Austin passes Stanley to him. They exchange a teary glance. Dad closes his eyes and snaps Stanley's neck. He was beyond saving. In the convex mirror, we watch the two bring Stanley into the incinerator room. He is lovingly wrapped in a blanket now, with his head uncovered. Dad puts his body into the incinerator and slowly turns it on. He looks away as it ignites. He asks Austin to give him a minute. Just kidding, this was the worst part of the movie.
This is why we don't leave the vents open.
We don't leave the vents open, and we don't have our cats around haunted corpses.
Yeah, don't do it.
Austin steps back into the hallway and glances at the convex mirror. Nothing. In the autopsy room, Jane Doe's blood still flows down into the drain. The fly is back and is cleaning itself while perched on her eye, then flies off. Austin enters the room, distracted and sad. He hears and then sees one of the empty body lockers open by itself. He approaches it. Dad spooks him when he asks him what he's doing. He had been silent when he entered the room. Austin says he must not have closed it properly. Dad prepares to gown up again. He tells Austin that Stanley was a pain in the ass, but he belonged to Austin's mother and was one of only a few things of hers he had left. Austin replies that he misses her too. Dad says, right, let's keep going. What's this? An older man who doesn't want to talk about his feelings? Say it isn't so.
I like how dismissive he is of his son too. Like, yeah, right. Yeah, you can miss her, I guess, but like I miss her more.
We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Son. It's not a contest because I win.
I'm winning.
Men, please talk about your feelings.
Yes, please
Thank you.
do.
Yeah, he had to give him a moment because he was about to feel emotions. Not allowed.
Suck it up, Tommy. Push it down. Thunder rumbles, and we get a shot of Jane Doe's now half-empty torso as Dad records that they are moving on to the third stage of the exam, her stomach and intestines. Austin tells his dad that he can talk to him. Dad says he's not hiding anything. Austin tells him he puts on an act for people. Dad insists he's fine. Dad cuts into Jane Doe's stomach and pulls out something thin and odd shaped. Austin asks if it's a flower. Dad goes over to a desk and pulls out a book on plants. He identifies the flower as Jimson weed, a paralyzing agent. It could explain the inflammation of her organs. But the weird thing is that it's found in the Northeast. Dad says that settles it. She's from up north. They still aren't sure how she got here. The thunder is persistent. The radio is reporting that winds are getting stronger and the rain heavier. It's a larger storm than anyone anticipated. Austin cautiously asks his dad if they can finish this in the morning. Dad tells him that they need to find the COD for Burke. They aren't close and they finish what they start. If Austin wants to leave, he can.
Okay, I'm leaving.
Bye, Dad. Also, you can't in the same breath say, we finish what we start, son. But
Yeah.
you can leave. Like, you just said not to. Austin frowns, but nods and puts on new gloves. Dad pulls something else out of the stomach. It's a bundle of fabric with a tooth wrapped inside. As they unfold the fabric, Austin notes that it looks like a shroud. It has a strange symbol, like a sigil, drawn in the middle, and some letters around the edges. Dad notes it looks pretty old. Stomach acid should have dissolved it. It shouldn't be intact. Austin notices Roman numerals on it and adds them to the whiteboard. XXVII, therefore 27. I know things. He suddenly gets an idea and pulls out the thread from earlier. Dad muses that the numerals and letters don't line up or make any sense. Austin grabs the cloth and briefly examines it under the microscope. Then he takes the tooth and holds it up to the gap in her mouth. He concludes that someone yanked out her tooth, wrapped it in the cloth, and forced her to swallow it. Dad asks what the symbol could mean. Austin guesses ritualistic. Dad wants to pursue that theory. Every ritual has a purpose. He asks Austin what MO they've found so far. He recites, she was bound, tongue was ripped out, poisoned, paralyzed, forced to swallow the cloth, cut and mutilated internally, and if that wasn't enough, they burned her. He stares at the whiteboard and muses, almost like a human sacrifice. Dad doesn't respond. Jane Doe stares. The radio warns of flash floods in the county. Dad is thinking hard. You can't kill someone this brutally and leave no outside trace. Austin thinks finding out why she was tortured could help. Dad tells him that down here, if you can't see it or touch it, it doesn't matter. Austin argues that these bodies are more than CODs. This happened to her for a reason. I gotta say I'm kind of on Dad's side with this one though. You can't guess why when all you have is the evidence in front of you.
Yeah, you can't. But I like how Austin is like, this is still a person.
True. I just think for scientific reasons, it can benefit you to put that aside while you're like doing the autopsy.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, be like, yes, this is a person. Yes, this is sad. But I had to just look at the facts.
He's a very fact man.
Dad's been doing this a long time. He knows what he's doing. The radio persists, warning that people need to stay home and not get caught in the storm. It ominously says, one thing is for sure, you're not going anywhere. Austin turns to stare at it. It crackles and then goes back to the old song it picked up earlier. Austin slowly tells his dad that he thinks they should leave. Dad is looking at the body again. Jane Doe stares. The song continues. Let the sun shine in, face it with a grin. And Dad examines her skin again. He asks Austin for help, and they peel back the outer layer of her skin. Again, I had to come up with the Oreo example because you can remove one cookie, and this is what they are doing.
They're removing a cookie.
And I didn't know that that was the way that skin worked, that you can just remove one cookie, but apparently you can.
Man, I used to like Oreos.
So
God damn it.
Cody.
I'm never going to look at it the same way again.
Or you could choose to look at your own skin as delicious.
Oh,
Which is more horrifying?
maybe
I
don't
think
do
the
that.
one where I think my skin is edible. I'm pretty sure that one's way worse.
You're welcome for that as well. The inside of her skin is covered in more symbols and sigils. Dad is speechless. They stare, taking it in. We get a close-up of Jane Doe's eyes. A corpse cabinet door creaks open. The song is getting louder. Open up your heart and let the sun shine in. Yes, I'm singing it because it's important. The men are silently looking around. Electricity surges. The radio crackles, and suddenly the lights all explode, raining down glass. The men duck. In the darkness, we hear lots of activity. Austin grabs a flashlight and calls for his dad, who calls back. They look around, and all of the corpse cabinet doors are open and empty. Dad says, let's get the fuck out of here.
About time.
You know, everything that's happened up till now could be explained. So I appreciate the sentiment of, oh, okay, this is weird. Let's get the fuck out of here.
It's a wonderful character trope when something like that happens. It was just like you realize, oh no, this is a bad time.
This is bad.
Yeah, let's not investigate the spooky noise in the basement. Let's just leave.
There's being stubborn, and then there's being unreasonably stubborn, and he is not. He is a realist. They leave Jane Doe behind and go out to the hallway. The generator kicks on and brings back some of the lights, but the elevator isn't working. They head towards the storm cellar door, but there's a huge thud. The hallway shakes and dust falls from the ceiling. They make it up the short staircase, but the door is stuck. Austin looks back down the hallway, thinking he saw something. He tries to help his dad, but a tree has fallen on the door, trapping them. Austin pulls out his phone, but there's no signal. Dad says there's a landline in the office. I'd be fucked because I don't have a landline. I think a lot of us are fucked now.
Yeah, nowadays.
R.I.P.
Although we got that 5G.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Can a ghost stop 5G? I don't know.
They should make a movie about that.
They should.
They make their way back in the dim light, watching and listening. There's a rhythmic thud echoing down the hallway. They make a break for the office and make it inside. Austin locks the door behind them. Dad goes immediately for the phone. Austin asks him what he thinks the noise was, but he doesn't know. The dial tone thankfully buzzes over the phone. Dad calls the sheriff's office, but their connection is breaking up. He gets a hold of Burke and tells him that they're trapped and need help, but Burke can't make out what he's saying. The line cuts off. Dad hangs up the phone, and the two look at each other, not knowing what to do. From outside in the hallway, a bell jingles. The men look towards the door, questions in their eyes. The bell rings again. Austin approaches the door. Dad gets up from his desk and takes a few steps towards it as well. The jingling stops. Austin swallows nervously and gets down on the ground, peering under the door. Nothing. Jump scare! A musical sting plays as a foot steps into view, the skin graying, a tag tied around the toe, and a bell around the ankle. Austin jumps back up. The two men watch the shadow now visible under the door. Suddenly, it starts banging on the locked door. The men waste no time moving the filing cabinet to brace it. They hold it in place for a few moments until the banging ceases. Austin breaks the silence, asking what the fuck is going on. He quickly moves on, saying that it's her. Everything was fine until they cut into her. Dad reminds him that he's talking about a corpse. He suddenly notices the cut on his wrist from earlier. It's red. It looks infected. He rushes to the adjoining bathroom to clean it. You know, Jane Doe really didn't even have to do much of anything because he was going to die from that cut anyways.
Yeah, she didn't have to work so hard.
But we love a queen who puts in effort. Meanwhile, Austin thinks everything they've done so far points to her being more than just a body. In the dark bathroom, Dad notices a movement behind the shower curtain. He turns off the sink. Austin is saying that they should have left. He turns to the bathroom in time to watch his father reaching for the shower curtain, not seeing the shadow of a figure standing behind it. He calls out, but too late. Dad is already grabbing the curtain. Nothing is there. Dad turns to look at Austin, who sighs in relief. Suddenly, Dad is grabbed and yanked out of view. The bathroom door slams shut before Austin can get there. He bangs on the door, yelling for Dad. On the other side, Dad is being assaulted. He bangs on the door, yelling for Dad. On the other side, Dad is being assaulted. He hits the door and grunts in pain. He looks up at his attacker, but all we see are dead gray eyes. He hits the floor in pain. The door opens and Austin slams through. He checks on his dad before hearing a loud thud in the office. He checks, and the filing cabinet has been knocked over, the door wide open. He goes back to Dad and lifts his shirt. There's bruising on his stomach. Cut to Austin helping Dad clean his smaller wounds with a first aid kit. Dad admits it had her eyes. Austin said that's what he's been saying. Dad says it's impossible. Austin shoots back that what they found in her body was impossible. Everything that's happening now is past possible. Dad asks what they should do. Cut to Austin peeking out of the office. The sheet that had covered the face of the man who had been shot is laying on the floor. Austin picks it up and then drops it again. They don't see anything else in the hallway, so they start making their way back to the autopsy room. The room is still dark when they enter. The corpse cabinets are still open. Jane Doe is still open on the table, her face blank, her mouth open. Dad notices that the samples they took are decaying on the table where they were left. Austin guesses that her body had been preserving them. Inside her body remains unchanged. Dad says they need to get her to the crematorium. As Austin gets a gurney and Dad starts pinning her skin back closed, we see a close-up of Jane Doe's face, then the door shutting on its own. The lock clicks and Austin runs over to it. He can't get it open. In a panic, he grabs a fire axe and chops a hole in the door. He stops and peers through the small hole into the hallway. After a moment, the face with the sewn-up eyes and mouth steps into view, taking up the entire hole. Austin shrinks back. He looks away as Dad approaches the hole. He sees the woman screech and open her mouth, the stitches stretching and pulling. He also shrinks back. Austin mutters, "Fuck it," grabs a jug of acetone and pours it all over Jane Doe's body. Dad watches in what I assumed was disapproval, but then he pulls out a matchbook and lights it. He tosses it on the body and she erupts into flames. They watch, but suddenly the flames spread unnaturally, climbing until they reach the ceiling and spread over it. Burning debris falls on the camcorder and the corkboard of photos. Dad has Austin grab the fire extinguisher, and he fights the flames that are spreading over the room. As he does, the flames on Jane Doe's body start to die out too, but she's unharmed. The men stare, and Dad utters a quiet, "No." They're torn from looking at her by the sound of the elevator. Dad rushes to look out the hole in the door. The hallway is clear. Austin grabs the axe. They are able to open the door and go out into the hallway. The lights come and go as they cross the hallway, like the generator is struggling. The convex mirror shows a clear path, but the elevator is already closing and leaving again. Austin hits the button repeatedly. As they wait, the convex mirror shows someone now walking down the hallway. The bell rings with every slow step. The men watch the other end of the hallway, holding their breath as they wait for it to appear. Austin starts hitting the elevator button again. Dad grabs the axe from him. It's the man with the shot face. He walks slowly down the hallway, each light going out as he reaches it. The elevator arrives, and Austin struggles to open it. He forces Dad inside. As Austin is trying to close it, the power dies, and they are stuck. Dad stands in the doorway with the axe, prepared. The man steps into view, and we see the gaping wound in the middle of his face. Dad lashes out with the axe, hitting him. We hear the body thud to the floor, but the sounds of a woman groaning follow. Austin bursts out of the elevator. It's Emma. She's laying on the ground, bleeding heavily and gasping for breath. Austin is horrified. He sobs and tries to quell the bleeding, but she quickly dies. Dad collapses against the wall, confused and anguished. Austin weeps over Emma's body. Dad looks down the hallway, still in shock, then hits the back of his head against the wall. The elevator dings. Dad coaxes Austin into the elevator. He takes a last look at Emma. Austin collapses, sobbing. The elevator gives out, leaving them trapped and in darkness. Dad screams, "Fuck." I really didn't see that coming the first time I watched it.
That was sad.
It was a very powerful twist, but yeah, it was very unexpected.
I like that she's clearly manipulating real things that are happening. They see something else. I thought that was a cool twist, but poor Emma.
It really kind of makes you think how much she's manipulating. If she did that, what else is she doing?
It's our first real, so we have to question reality now.
Yeah.
The two don't really seem to understand that, though, as they keep going. I don't know.
They have to process a lot very quickly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Cut to Austin sitting quietly in the corner. Dad checks his stomach. His bruising is getting worse. Austin tells Dad that he's the one who told Emma to come back. Dad tells him it isn't Austin's fault. It's his fault. Austin says he couldn't have known. Dad says that's what people told him about Austin's mom. He reveals that he used to call her Ray, like Ray of Sunshine. He says he would have helped her if he'd known, but she was so bright. He didn't know that she was carrying so much pain and unhappiness. But he feels like he should have seen it. He regrets that she dealt with it alone. He regrets that Austin has to pay for Dad's mistakes. They sit in silence. This is really the only time we're going to get into that aspect of the story, their relationship and what happened to Austin's mom. I do feel like it maybe could have been covered a little bit more given that it was brought up several times in the beginning, but it is a good enough explanation and we don't spend too long on it since our real goal here is spooks. So overall, I feel like they handled that aspect of the plot pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
We pan over the autopsy room and Jane Doe. We see the incinerator light. Austin wonders why she hasn't killed them yet. If she really wanted them dead, she's proved she's capable. Austin notes that things keep happening when they cut into her. What if there's something that she doesn't want them to find? We watch the incinerator door open and smoke pour into the room, then the hallway. Dad is shocked that Austin wants to go back, but he points out that if they stay here, they're dead anyway. If they can find out how she died, maybe they can stop her. The men pry open the elevator door and drop back into the hallway. Austin leans over Emma again. Dad covers her face with a jacket. They look towards the autopsy room and notice the smoke. They walk slowly into it, no choice. As they make their way through, they start coughing and calling out for each other to not get lost. Dad hears a jingle and cries out as he's struck by one of the bodies. He's slashed at several times and falls to the floor. The assault stops and Austin finds him. He helps Dad up and they rush into the autopsy room. They block the door and turn to Jane Doe. Her expression has for sure changed. Her eyes are focused, calculating. Her mouth is closed. She looks older and more sinister. Austin cuts into her scalp and then saws the top of her skull off. He exposes the brain, but it looks normal. Dad takes a sample, believing there must be something like the rest of her organs. They replace her skull and scalp, and Austin takes the brain sample to the microscope. Austin looks at the sample and says, "What the fuck?" He looks at Dad in confusion, so Dad steps forward to take a look himself. The blood is flowing and cells are moving around. Did you know that microscopes can just see through giant chunks of flesh at a cellular level and that you don't have to have really thinly cut samples?
Yeah, pretty funny how that works, huh?
I was like, I haven't used a microscope in years, but I remember having to get things
Yeah,
real thin.
I've actually had to slice tissues, and you slice them really, really thin. Like, they're super fragile, easy to tear.
Yeah, and because like the whole thing is that the light has to be able to penetrate through, right? And
Yeah.
then the microscope can only see so much, or else it would be like there'd be too many things. It would just be black. So
Too much stuff.
I just thought it was really funny. They put a giant chunk of flesh on a microscope and then saw blood flowing. Like, okay. Dad murmurs that that's why they couldn't find a cause of death. She's alive. Austin is upset. How could she be alive when they set her on fire and took out her heart? Dad says that something is keeping her going. Energy? Call it what you want. Austin wanders back to the shroud. It's folded over, and he notices that when folded a certain way, the letters spell out Leviticus. Dad confirms and notes the Roman numerals say 27. He flips open a Bible to the verse. Austin realizes that the other Roman numerals would mean 1693. Dad reads out, "Any man or woman who consult the spirits of the dead shall be put to death, for they are." He trails off and looks at Jane Doe. Austin puts together that 17th century, Northeast, New England. Dad puts down the Bible and Austin reads out the rest of the verse. "They are a witch, and their blood shall be on their own heads." Jane Doe's mouth is almost quirked in a half smile. Almost. Austin says it fits, but Dad says witches are a myth. There were no witches in Salem. Only young girls, falsely accused, wrapped up in hysteria and all accusing each other. But they were all actually innocent. He notes that Jane Doe wasn't hung or burned at the stake. She was tortured. Austin says that the ritual didn't work. Dad is thinking. He glances between Jane Doe and the notes. He wonders if the ritual failed by being performed on the innocent, and they made her into the very thing they were trying to destroy. Jane Doe's face is calmer, like she's listening now. Again, my interpretation. She could feel everything that they did to her in the ritual, and now everything they did during the autopsy, and she wants them to feel it too. Dad lifts his shirt and shows his darker, larger bruise, which has even started to bleed a little bit. He says that this is her revenge, her own ritual. Austin asks, why them? Dad doesn't think anyone she's killed has been for a reason beyond that they came across her. They were stops on her way. Someone who survived buried her as far away as they could. Austin says that it didn't stop her. Dad says no one has gotten close enough. They were the first to discover all of this. He believes she is still suffering. It won't stop until... He trails off. Austin asks him, until what? He doesn't answer. Austin asks again, until what? Something slams into the door. Austin rushes to go brace it. Dad leans over Jane Doe and tells her that he will fight her, but asks that she doesn't hurt Austin. He asks her to let him help her. Her face is resolved. The noise and activity dies down. Dad's face slowly starts to turn from sadness to pain and fear. He groans and starts to turn red. He cries out and arches his back in pain. Austin panics and runs to him. Dad holds out his shaking hands. Jane Doe's face has turned sinister again. Dad's wrists snap, and we see Jane Doe's crack into place again, whole. His ankles, thus hers, follow. Dad falls to his knees. He continues to cry out as we watch Jane Doe's skin stitch back together. We hear vague stabbing sounds. Her lungs fill and start losing their black color, while Dad coughs up a cloud of smoke. He fully falls to the ground and looks up at Austin. His eyes are turning gray, while Jane Doe's are turning brown. Dad reaches out towards a scalpel. Austin whispers, no, and starts to cry. Dad turns to him in agony and asks, please. Austin starts to sob. Jane Doe's skin has color again. Her face is cruel, again nearly smiling. Dad continues to scream in pain until he jerks as we hear a stab. He utters one last small groan as he looks up at Austin and then goes limp, dead. Austin's hand lets go of the scalpel that he stabbed his dad in the chest with. Austin cries and strokes his dad's face. Jane Doe looks unsatisfied. Austin sits on the floor next to his dad. He calms himself down a little bit and the lights come back on. The radio plays rock music. He looks up and the corpse cabinet doors are closed again. He hears Burke calling to them in the distance. He goes out to the hallway and hears a commotion, sirens, and chainsaw sound. He looks around the hallway, confused, then steps over Emma's body. Burke is saying that they're sawing down the tree that's blocking the cellar door. Austin calls back to Burke. Burke tells him the door should open now. He strains against them, but they won't open. Burke insists that he needs to open the door, but he yells back that he can't. Burke yells back, "Open up!" And Austin starts to panic. Burke's yelling turns into song. Open up your heart and let the sun shine in. Austin's face falls as Burke continues to sing. From the hallway, we hear the bell again. He looks down over the banister, but can't see anything. As he turns back, jump scare! His father is standing right next to him with gray eyes. He startles and falls backwards, breaking through the railing. We pan down and see that the fall has killed him. He lays with a blank expression. We pan back to the autopsy room door. Cut to the next morning. Burke and the rest of the police force have arrived. Burke looks down at Austin with sadness. He enters the autopsy room and looks at Dad on the floor, scalpel still in his chest. The female officer from the last crime scene says that there are no signs of forced entry. She says that it looks like Burke cuts her off, saying that he's known this family for 20 years. Whatever it looks like, it isn't that. The radio calls out the forecast. Today will be the 4th straight day of sunshine. The pictures of Jane Doe, some charred, are still on the corkboard. The bodies are back in their corpse cabinets. Burke frustratedly asks, "What the hell happened here?" The other officer asks him what to do with Jane Doe. He says to get her out of here. He wants her out of his county. Let someone else deal with her. The officer nods and walks away. Jane Doe's face is back to its original innocent expression. Eyes gray, skin pale. Someone covers her body with a sheet. Burke watches the bodies be wheeled out of the house and loaded into vans. We hear a man's voice on a phone call as we watch the vans drive off. It's an officer driving one of the vans. He doesn't notice as his radio crackles and picks up a familiar song, "Let the Sun Shine In." The song continues as we pan over Jane Doe's face, down the sheet covering her body, and to her feet, complete with a toe tag. The song ends. We see one of Jane Doe's toes wiggle with the sound of a jingling bell. Credits.
Wow.
Spooky.
It's a really good ending, if you ask me.
Yeah. I'll say this time when I watched it, Austin's ending kind of reminded me of The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, yeah, I can
Yeah.
get that. So my headcanon is that he died because Dad took the coward's way out and had him kill him while she was still doing her rejuvenation sequence.
Yeah. You know, he's like, don't hurt him. And then he ends it prematurely. And he didn't say, don't kill him. So, I mean, she didn't hurt him. She just killed him.
Technically, she didn't kill him. The fall did.
Yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say, like, I think your description of like she looks dissatisfied is pretty accurate because that's kind of what it looked like. It's like, yeah, well, like, okay, you did the whole pain and death thing, but it's not really it, is it?
I wonder what would have happened if he had died from her ritual rather than the scalpel. Like, would she have come back to life? I don't know.
I think if we were to see more from this movie, if there were to be a sequel, we might see her come back. Because in the vehicle, we do see her toes wiggle, and she did not move before.
That's
so
true.
I think she's getting some life as she's modeling.
At the very least, getting stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. My other headcanon is that she was a witch the whole time. So Dad being like, they were all innocent. Like, nah, she just a witch though. But they murdered her and they tortured her. And now she's going to torture people. And so that's why for me, this is a good for her movie. I'm like, you get revenge.
Get all the revenge you want.
We love a good feminine rage story.
Mm-hmm.
Very cathartic. So shall we move on to fun fact?
I believe we shall.
What you got?
So I have a few here. So starting out, this is Andre Ovredal. That's how I'm going to pronounce
Nailed it.
First try.
Yay. This is first English language film. He's a Norwegian director, and this is the first time he's directed anything in English.
Wow.
I thought it was interesting. Good
for him.
Good breakout into English. Good job.
It's very good. I think he also did Troll Hunter, right?
Oh, No.
Dude.
I haven't seen because I keep only finding the English dub and I don't want to watch the English dub. I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah.
I've heard it's
Good.
very good. I have not gotten around to watching it myself. Did not know who directed
Perhaps.
that. Interesting. Didn't find that one. One aspect that I thought was very interesting is the entire movie was filmed in chronological order,
Oh,
which
that's
you
rare.
don't typically see in a lot of movies.
No.
So I thought that was really cool.
I guess that can make sense here given that, they keep destroying things more and more. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty rare, so that's cool.
I think it's also easier to do on like a small, I don't necessarily want to call it a set, but I guess a small location because it's
Yeah.
just like a couple of rooms is all this movie takes place in, really.
Yeah, it's a one location movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat.
That is.
So Jane Doe, who is played by Olwen Catherine Kelly, was selected due to her knowledge of yoga, which helped her control her body movements and breathing while she was lying on the table.
It laid there for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how cold she was.
No,
Yeah.
oh my god.
One of the extra little things, like she was just lying on the table for like 8 hours a day for
Oh
like
my
5
God.
weeks straight.
Jesus.
And like
I
that had to
couldn't.
be exhausting. The director overall did say that she was pretty much the most important character around, and it was she was chiefly responsible for making sure everyone else was comfortable, which that was very nice of her.
It does put everyone in a weird position, so
Yeah.
Yeah, especially given like the nature of a lot of the scenes in the movie.
yeah.
There's definitely some comfort levels getting broached. Speaking of Jane Doe being played by a live actress, that was a deliberate choice for a couple reasons. One of them was practical because doing a lot of the close-up shots with prosthetic just wouldn't have worked with the director.
We see her face a lot, so
Yeah.
for sure.
Secondly, it was to help connect the audience to the character that she was playing because, she was tortured and a lot of bad stuff, whether or not she was a witch.
Doesn't
Tattooed was on
matter.
a lot of rough treatment.
Torture bad.
Yeah.
I do have questions about that tattoo. Like, did the people tattoo that on her? Like, did they flay her and tattoo that on there, or was that from her being a witch? We don't get an answer.
wonder if they tattooed it onto her skin, but because all of her scene
Oh.
injuries were internal, it just kind of went.
Yeah, all her external turned internal, so it just showed
Yeah.
up on the inside instead.
Yeah.
That is a good theory. I like that.
Yeah, I was wondering the exact same thing because it's either like supernatural inside out tattoos or they had to peel the skin back, do a tattoo, and then sew it back up and have all
Yeah, they did like a lot of shit to her. We don't really know how her body healed the outside enough to cover that up. So they could have flayed her and then it healed,
Yeah,
but
they could have.
I like the other idea.
Yeah, no, that's a much better idea. I quite enjoy that. Another interesting fact is Ajay Overdahl was inspired to do a horror movie after a screening of The Conjuring.
Classic.
After seeing that movie, he called his agent and asked them to find a good horror script. And about a month or so later, they found the script for this movie, which he immediately loved and was interested in.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, this is a really good one. So they sure found a really good script.
Yeah, props to
Oh
them.
yeah.
And lastly, Olwen Catherine Kelly, who played Jane Doe, was actually the first person interviewed for the role. They conducted a lot of other interviews afterwards, but pretty much knew from the get-go that she was right for the role.
Oh.
And they were right.
She's incredible.
Nailed it. You couldn't do it the same without her.
Mm-mm.
And I don't think she's acted much beyond this. So
Yeah, I haven't heard her name before.
I did a little bit. I believe she's an Irish actress.
from what I saw, she primarily modeled. So
Yeah, she used to be a model. Yeah, there's a few movies that I haven't even heard of or seen. Winter Ridge in 2018 and Darkness on the Edge of Town in 2014.
Ooh, that one sounds familiar.
I don't know it.
That.
Yeah, I could not tell you. But she did a fantastic job in this one.
She was really good.
It sounds interesting to say that considering she played a dead body, but there was very, very subtle emotion in a few of those close-up like face shots.
And that in itself is like, it had to be so hard to do where you change your face just enough that it is noticeable, but it also kind of makes you go, did it move?
Yeah.
So,
It's
and then,
really
yeah, just
impressive.
laying on the table there,
It
accomplishing that.
so exhausting. Yeah. But that is all the fun facts and trivia that I have for today.
Yay! Thank you.
Theme analysis time.
Okay, so this movie kind of touches on the unsettling nature of the unknown and descent into madness and isolation. Touches on themes of female victimhood, patriarchal subjugation, and the potential for reclaiming power. You know, we're stuck in this morgue, in this one morgue, and they can't get out. They're isolated, completely isolated. They can't reach out to anybody externally, and they have all this stuff going on, and they don't have a grasp of their own minds anymore. She's kind of guiding them and giving them what she wants them to see, kind of, pushing them further and further into the madness.
Gaslight, girl boss, gatekeep.
Hell yeah.
As an added bonus, if they tried to describe what was happening to anyone, like let's say they'd gotten Sheriff Burke on the phone, he probably would have been like, "Are you sure you're not imagining it?"
Yeah, who's gonna believe you? Oh, so what if my corpses got up and started walking around and tried to attack me? Okay, maybe it's time we take you to a home.
Yeah. Cool. What's this dead body with an axe wound? A guy
Yeah.
holding an axe? What's up with that?
Why don't you lose a little weight and come back? We'll see if you're still seeing things.
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
So Jane Doe is our symbol of female victimhood. She was a fairly young girl in a time where young girls were being heavily persecuted, accused of being witches, and then tortured and killed for being not witches. And she kind of takes that back and uses it to her advantage, seeking vengeance. She doesn't care who it is. It's all the same to her.
Righteous fury.
That's right.
There are a lot of good moments in this movie.
They really are.
So that one bit where the dad kind of starts going, "Oh no, this is they tortured her, they called her a witch," and like you said, the expression kind of backs off a little bit on her. She's like, "Okay, cool, you guys are starting to get it. All these horrible things happen to me. Cool, someone understands a little bit." And yeah, I really enjoyed that because it's she's kind of just mad that she got treated like that.
Yeah, I get it. I would be too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would
for,
go to this
what,
extent.
200 years? Yeah, sure. I could be pissed.
I don't know if this amount of thought was put into it, but I kind of like that our two main characters that we're following are men in this movie because they do treat her body with respect and everything, but there's the element of no cisgender man can ever truly know the female experience. And she went through a lot, and her sex was the biggest driving factor, likely, because witches be ladies, usually.
Yeah.
And then they do try to understand. They're on her side, but again, they could not ever truly understand her experience, and she does end up killing them. So yeah, I like that aspect in a way where it's like you're on the right path, but you'll never truly understand. So unless you do fully submit, and he doesn't, he takes the coward's way out and has his son stab him. Unless you fully submit, you're not truly an ally.
Yep.
So I like that.
Gotta fully submit. Take it all.
Let your girlfriend step on you. I mean, what?
Crush your ankles, put smoke in your lungs, stab you a bunch of times. Otherwise, can you really truly call yourself an ally?
Turn you into a skin Oreo.
Oh God, we're back to the skin Oreos.
I'm sorry, I hate myself for it.
Yeah, it's like he came really close and he kind of started to get there, but once the chips were down, it's like, oh no, this sucks too much. End it quicker. And it's like, All right, well, you tried, but there's
It's
no
not
participation
enough.
trophies in getting prosecuted as a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I didn't get to have that option when they tortured me to death.
Right?
Why should you?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Obviously, this is a very broad interpretation. Men out there, we are not actually asking let yourself be stabbed in the name of being an ally to women. But, it's the general gesture, I guess. Just know that you can't just make a gesture and that's enough. You gotta be all in.
Fully commit.
And so we shall move on to our letterboxed review. So we rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 5 because that is the scale that Letterboxd uses. And first we start off with a scary rating. So this movie has good tension, good jump scares. I do think that it doesn't do anything particularly unique in terms of scares themselves, but the scares are effective. This one did spook me quite a bit the first time I watched it, so I am going to go ahead and give this a 3.5 on the scariness rating.
I'm going to give it a 4. When I first saw it, I really felt the tension, and I don't really get jump scares. They don't really ever get to me. So that was just like a meh. Some people they're really effective on. But the tension.
I am so easy to get with jump scares.
That's fair. That's totally valid. All of the tension building, the uncomfortability of the autopsy itself. Words.
Words are hard.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I'm also gonna give it a 4. Yeah, when I first watched it, it kind of subverted my expectations. I thought it was gonna be like, oh, it's haunted, it was spooky, and then more of it came out, and I go, okay, that's actually way better and scarier. Like especially seeing the figures in the hallway around the mirror, which is very well done because like you see just enough to recognize that's not normal. Like that's not how a human moves, but also it's, obfuscated to where you really don't get too many details. I feel like all of the jump scares, yeah, like you said, weren't anything particularly new, but they were all very well done. It
Mhm.
wasn't just wow, big scary monster. Like the one that really got me was the foot under the door. Like I knew it was happening, but I think it held off for just like half a beat longer than I expected. Because usually, especially after you see a lot of movies, you think, okay, you count Mississippi seconds until jump scare happens. You can usually feel it, but that one held off a little bit more, and it made it
Yeah.
that much more tense.
The one that got me the most was definitely the dad at the end where he turns around and the dad is standing there and then he falls. That one actually did make me jump. And so the other element is our quality rating because quality and scariness do not always go hand in hand. So once again, on a scale of 1 to 5, I think this one is really good. It lacks a little bit in the plot department, but that's okay because it's not a super long movie and we do get enough from our characters. It does pull me back a tiny bit though, so this for me is a 4. Solid, we'll watch again. Not really a 5 though.
I agree with the 4. It was really well done, but yeah, there were some plot things I would have liked to see expanded on a little bit more.
I was actually going to give this one a 5. I very much
Ooh.
enjoyed it. And personally, I kind of enjoy like a don't show the whole plot type of thing. So some of the missing story beats that you guys were flesh out like the relationship with the mother a little bit more. I actually really enjoyed that it kind of just gave us enough information to be like, okay, he obviously feels some guilt about, losing his wife and, depriving his son of the mother. I can understand maybe not wanting to talk about it that much, especially with how well guys like to talk about their feelings, as we all know.
Yeah.
Not wanting to address the guilt and perhaps throwing himself into his work. So I feel like, yeah, there could have been more information, but I feel like we got enough to still matter.
For sure. All right, so those are our Letterboxd ratings. We will write a short review that will go up on Letterboxd when the episode is released. I do want to say with my personal Letterboxd ratings, I'm so used to a scale of 1 to 10 that everything I do on here like is doubled. So my 3.5 is a 7 out of 10, you know? So just in case my ratings ever sound harsh. No, this is an 8 for me. That's pretty good.
This was a really good movie.
Love it. Well, we are wrapping up the episode now, which means it is time to ask Jasmine what we will be watching next week.
Next week, we will be watching Creep. Creep is currently streaming on Netflix, and it's going to be a great time.
It was brought up in our Lazarus Effect episode, which is thus far my favorite episode. Give that a listen if you haven't yet. And I'm excited. This one's going to be, oh man, I don't even know how I feel about
it. It's going to be a whirlwind.
I don't even know how I feel about writing this script. It's going to be crazy.
There's going to be some weird moments. I already can tell.
There is.
So, definitely looking forward to that.
Funny enough, I've seen Creep 2, but not the first one.
Oh! Creep 2 is a whole different journey.
Yeah.
So this will be fun.
Yeah, I heard there were some wild scenes in the first one, so I am very much looking forward to it.
It's gonna be a good time. So please check us out on our socials. They're going to be linked in the description. And then if you're able to and you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating and a follow.
Thank you for joining us. This has been Scene, Screams, and Spooky Themes, Take 6. That's a wrap.
Cut!